Yeah, no, without question. If Arsenal had picked up a League Cup and an FA Cup in this run, I don't think there's any doubt that we would be feeling much more confident around where this Arsenal team are and what we're achieving and where we're going. And there wouldn't be this thing about Arteta can't get it over the line, because obviously he would have lifted multiple trophies
Yeah.
after the FA Cup in 2021. So, yeah, it's hard for me. I'm looking at Jurgen Klopp, for example. You know, he took over at Liverpool in 2015. He won his first title in 2020. He won the Champions League in the year before that, in 2019. So from taking over in 2015, 4 years to win the Champions League, 5 years to win the title. Obviously, he took over a team that had a lot more resources and already had been competing for the title under Brendan Rodgers, of course, prior to his arrival, which Arteta didn't have when he arrived, and had to rip up the entire squad pretty much with very few sellable assets, unlike Liverpool with Coutinho, etc. So I think that Arsenal are on track, but obviously he picked up. I mean, he won his first FA Cup in 2022, League Cup. His first League Cup was in 2022 as well. So even before Klopp won his first title in 2020, he hadn't picked up an FA Cup or a League Cup in that time, which is quite an interesting thing to think about. But he had reached the Champions League final in 2017-18, which I think gave him a lot of, in the same way that the FA Cup in Arteta's first season gave him credibility at the beginning, that gave him that kind of, you know, they're going to go on to surely get something over the line, if that makes sense. And they did that in 2018-19. You know,
do you think next season? Sorry to cut you, but like, do you think next season, like, there's proper pressure on Mikel Arteta?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. There's pressure on him. Yeah, because if he, as I said, if he doesn't lift the trophy next season, whatever trophy, I think if he was to say lift a League Cup, I don't think that would, you know, really in the same way that it would have maybe 2-3 years ago, relieve the pressure. It's all about the Premier League and the Champions League. That is what the club is about. You know, internally, that the view is, yes, we need to go as far as we can in those cups, like the FA Cup and the League Cup, but they know that the Premier League title and the Champions League are the two that they need to be lifting. I've always said that I think Arteta has to show in this contract that he can win one of those two titles and the next one. That's always the view I've held. And if he doesn't do that in the upcoming season or the next season, then it's very hard not to give credence to the conversation. Unfortunately, a lot of Arteta's critics have kind of destroyed the genuine debate around Arteta's future, because you could have a genuine conversation about whether Arteta is the right man to be in charge of Arsenal.
No middle ground.
There isn't a middle ground, unfortunately. That whole debate has been destroyed by aspects of the Arsenal fan base just for clicks and attention and views and whatever.
Facts.
Out. So, which is a shame, because I think the Arteta debate after next season, if we don't win anything, is a genuinely interesting one. But unfortunately, people just kind of pigeonhole you into kind of these different camps. And
are you in? Are you out?
Exactly. And it's just not the way football works. So binary, way people look at football so binary is just so annoying, because it's just like, so trophy equals success. Everything else is failure. You know, Gyökeres scores 50 goals. Must be a great striker. Sesko has 13 league goals a season. Must be a terrible signing. Like, it's this way that people look at football in just one way.
The same people waffling about Gyökeres in Portugal look down on the league generally and say it's a farmers league. The players ain't good enough.
Yeah, people are weird.
It's funny, man. What are you gonna do, man? Even with that, like, my personal thing with Arteta is, it's hard not to like him. Like, you're in the press boxes, so you see the passion he is. Anyone that goes to the games, you can see it. Whether you even watch it on TV, isolated away from Arsenal, I admire him, because you've been a manager really and truly for about 30 seconds, and you've got to the latter stages of the Champions League since you've been back there. There's a lot of good things. No man in this world is without fault, so you do have things you need to improve. I think this season is the most where I'm unhappy with you tactically, because I know you've pivoted and showed adversity, but I look in the last 2 years, I've seen us great or stand out in Europe defensively and for our attacking football. I think we've kind of regressed a bit or stagnated a bit, Arteta, and I think you're better than that. Where the issues now comes is, that's me looking at Arteta in isolation. When I marry it with Arsenal and, you know, the drought we've been on, and because the fact is, I think we've actually been quite good. I think now we're in a stage where it's actually legitimate, definitely in the Premier League, to say why we're not getting over the line. And that's the final stepping stone for me of Arteta. You're a good coach. Are you a winning coach? Yes, you won an FA Cup or 2 Community Shields as well. Can you get us over the line? And I do think that's a genuine conversation. Like, because I hold you to these high standards, I think you can get over the line. But as you said, there's too much agenda-driven drivel, if I'm completely honest. So we're never going to be in a space where we legitimately ask this. Now, whether the club are looking at it like that, I don't know, because obviously, God forbid, if Arteta got sacked today, who are they going to get? Is that they're kind of thinking, or are they comfortable persisting with Arteta trying to polish this rough diamond that he is? Honestly, I have no clue. I do need to ask you as well, then how do you make the Berta Arteta dynamics at play? Because some would say, you know what, Berta's been there to find his replacement. Like, what do you think of it? Like, how does it work for you?
Berta's come in to try and do what Edu couldn't, and that's to basically put Arteta into a position where we don't look at anything else but him. You know, I want Arsenal to be in a position in the start of this season where there are no external caveats to Arteta's season, where at the end of the campaign, we can look at it and go, the only reason that we didn't achieve what we set out to achieve is the manager. That I want to be in a position where we can have that conversation if we get there. You know, I don't want, like, this season, you cannot have that conversation because of the fact he wasn't backed, wasn't supported in the window, because of the injury he suffered, the refereeing decisions to an extent. I mean, they're just kind of a constant. So I expect those to happen, and that will screw us over at some point during next season, I'm sure. But I just want Arsenal to be in a position where he has the team, we sign the players we know we need, and we get to see if he can take Arsenal to those titles that we know that we've been so close to. Because I think he can. I think he can take us there. You look at the season before the one just gone, winning more games in the Premier League than the Invincibles did, scoring more goals in the league than the Invincibles did,
last
finishing 2 points off the title. That showed, that team, that season showed that Arsenal were absolutely capable of winning a title with this manager, with these players. And I just think we're just so close. And I just hope we can get there.
I think you're right, man. We are close. And I just think for everyone in the summer, I think for the players, you need to go and review where you need to get better. For Arteta, I need you to find that balance of being stubborn in your own principles, but evolving. I guess he's evolved. And I think this season, will probably be one that sticks out in his mind for a long time, because I think he would have learned a lot with the Champions League and whatnot. But I need him to evolve. Like, for me, I mean, we're gonna, as we close up, we're gonna get into it, but I don't think it's as white and black as you sign Rodrygo, Gyökeres, Sesko, whichever one in our attack, and we're flying. Clearly, it makes a difference, but people are crying about our chance creation and whatnot. If the core principles stay the same and you sign these players and nothing really changes, where are you going to be at then? So even down to the physios. Now, I'm not criticizing the physios, but something's gone on there. Naturally, we've had an unreal amount of injuries for a variety of factors. My point being, it's just a case of everybody just needs to go back to the drawing board. You know, there's been some highs previous years. Last year was a downer. Let's just take all of that and use that as a bit of fuel. Do you think Arteta, like, not setting himself up, but kind of on the theme of getting it over the line and whatnot, he's gone, for what I've seen anyways, he's being less diplomatic where he talks about transfers. He's not specifically saying we're going to do X, Y, Z, but I mean, you're in the press boxes. He's being very kind of direct of, we need this, we need that, and the third.
Yeah, I think he is. I think he's a bit sick and tired of kind of like the stigma that he's not that way, that he's that he's at fault for, like, not having the squad that we think we should have right now. That the fact that we haven't, I think he's so sick of the idea of that he doesn't want a centre forward and that he wants this. Like, the words he's been using recently, like the one after the Newcastle home game was the biggest one, I think, where he said, "I'm going to insist on it." Like, that was a really big statement. And I welcome that. Absolutely. I think I want to see more of that from him. He had a bit of a back and forth with James Ollie when talking about kind of the idea of signing a player, and he was like, "Do I need to be clear? Like, the statement is the same from January."
Snappy.
And I like that. I think that's good. You know, I want him to be that way inclined. You know, he's done that with me. You know, in the past. You know, I've gone back at him about certain questions later on. He kind of bit back when I was talking about Man United reaching, you know, 5 finals. Is it 5 finals, something like that?
5 finals in 6 years or something.
5 finals in 6 years. He was like, and I said about, is that people measuring that as success? And what's fair? And he said, success and failure aren't 2 words in my vocabulary. And a few weeks later, I went back at him about that. And I said, you said that success and failure isn't in your vocabulary. you know, do you feel that people looking at football in such a binary way is a worry? And he was like, yeah, I think it is, you know, and I think that he went and explained kind of further on that point. But yeah, I do really think that he's taken no prisoners, I think, this summer. And certainly I think if we get to the end of the window and we haven't landed the players that we know that we need, I don't think that's on him. And if anything, I'd be starting to worry about whether he thinks he's in the right place to achieve what he wants to achieve as a manager as well. So that becomes a concern in itself.
I'm quite bullish about the summer because naturally I tried, a bit like Arteta, I tried to be optimistic. I tried to be quite philosophical in how I look at things. I'm of the thing of, I don't want to forget last season. I don't want to look at it positively or negatively. I just genuinely want to look at it and take the good and make it great, and take the obvious areas of improvement and keep it moving in that kind of regard. But then I look at it and I ask myself, like, am I putting too much faith in Berta? Like, for me, I'm not disrespecting Berta. It's just, I like what you did at Atletico Madrid. With the greatest of respect to Edu, it looks like you're several calibers above. Like, and I look at it, as much as he's good, can he really perform miracles, really? Because if it's an underwhelming summer again, people are going to kind of look at Berta. So am I putting too much eggs in the Berta basket without knowing anything, really?
No, I don't think so. I think there's a lot of expectation. I've said this before. I don't think it's a free hit summer. I think you're coming in as an experienced sporting director.
Exactly.
And you're not, it's not like Edu, where he was learning to a degree on the job. You know the job. You know that you've got the contacts. You've done the deals. You've brought in some of the biggest players on earth. You've spent some of the biggest funds ever seen on seeing individual players. I think it was Raul Felix, Atletico Madrid. You've done some of the biggest sales, as we've seen as well, Antoine Griezmann. He's experienced in some of the biggest deals that we've ever seen. So there's no build up, there's no warm up, there's just now, and he has to go and secure Arsenal the bag effectively and get them the players they need.
Simple as that, really and truly. And that's one thing I like of what I'm seeing as well, based on reports, in that it feels like we've never had an ability to pivot. Now, obviously, you could caveat that with, you know, we wanted the Garcia lad from Espanyol, whether people like it or not. We got Neto. I mean, we was offered Sterling. Feels like that's been the theme, actually. Offered Ollie Watkins and offered Sterling. We did that. Based on what I'm seeing with Berta now, it's like we're tying up kind of several deals, and then we'll pull one trigger when we've reached a consensus or be able to pivot. So it'd be interesting. I mean, when you see the whole 200 million with no PSR issues and whatnot, I'm not saying the club's going to spend recklessly, but it's required. Do you buy any of the rumors with Partey going to Barcelona? And where are you at with the new deal for Thomas as well?
Yeah, absolutely. There's realism in that, because he's out of contract in the summer. So clubs are going to be, you know, having conversations with representatives. There's going to be inquiries made. There's going to be offers. There's going to be discussions around what Partey is looking for. I think that Partey, his preference would be to remain at Arsenal, certainly for next season, but is going to want guarantees. And, you know, he's only had the same contract for the last 5 years. This would be his first renewal if he has one. So, you know, the terms would be discussed as well. There'd be expectation, I think, over those. Whereas other players, of course, have had renewals every couple of years and gone up as a result of that as well. And I think, you know, that's something to consider. I think that there are issues. I think that the injury side of things is something to be concerned about. This was an anomaly when it comes to a season for Partey with injuries. You know, pretty much every year we've had him, there's been problems, and he's a big earner. And the thing for Arsenal and Arteta is Arteta's been very outspoken. He said he wants to keep him. And if that's what the manager wants, if you fail to secure the player that the manager wants to keep, then does that look bad on the club potentially? It's a multifaceted issue. I think that from an Arsenal side of things, as I said, they want to keep him. If they don't keep him, then that will be seen as not achieving what they set out, or at least what the manager wanted to set out to do anyway.
Obviously, you're not the coach, but if Zubimendi comes